Welcome once again to Syntax Error, your pretentious philosophical pedantic podcast ostensibly about video gaming and related topics therein. Warning, this podcast contains mature language, content, and spoilers. You have been warned.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Syntax Error / Bonus Points Extended, where we're going to discuss the next game in our favorite series, at least some of ours. Fallout 4, which I'm sure all of you are aware of, came out, 10 days ago? It's been 10 days. We've all been playing for 10 days.
Yeah.
So we're going to do quick first impressions, initial impressions of it, what we liked, disliked, perhaps about some of the changes and what they did. So I'll let Ian start off. What do you think of Fallout 4 so far, sir?
Well, I think I played the least of all of you because I've very busy schedule.
Well, you probably played the same amount. You just played the same part multiple times, which you may tell us about now.
Yes. All right. So I started off. I knew a little bit about the plot going in. I got a couple of the initial spoilers. So I decided to play a woman first because I felt that narratively made more sense that I'm hunting down my child. Not to say that men are more callous, but it quickly came to the realization that this game was not meant, even though they allowed women, you to have a female character, it was more focused on the male character. I'll bring that up later when we're actually break this opening down. Oh, and before we get in, this is going to be a huge spoiler event. So if you haven't played and we mentioned spoilers early on in the intro, but
assuming you played this for a couple of hours.
This time, for real, do not listen unless you have played at least a little bit.
So then I started over as a guy, because that made more narrative sense, until I was frozen in not only the cryogenic chamber,
frozen.
But upon leaving the cryogenic chamber, my character, the game froze, except for the blaring alarm in the background. I couldn't move at all. So I was forced to play as the woman. And again, it's harder almost to justify narrative choices as the female in this. But that's my initial impression. I'm kind of disappointed by the opening scenes I've seen. Anyway, Steve?
I'm really enjoying it so far. It's kind of more of what I loved about Fallout 3 and Vegas as well. But introducing a few different aspects, which can be cool and also at times can be kind of annoying. So that's probably a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight. They introduce a new crafting system, which is probably the biggest difference. You can create a home or basically an entire town.
Yeah, no, it's Fallout Craft is what they're going for.
Not only an entire town, but you can build multiple towns. You can build an entire civilization.
You can build,
yes, if you're so inclined.
Yeah, trade routes between your towns and things like that. It's all based on on crafting stations. If you played any Skyrim, probably be a little bit familiar with.
Kind of.
We'll go. I want to actually really delve into that in a little bit.
Okay.
So.
But anyway, as far as the initial plot went, I played I played a male character, and as you're saying, it's the first quest is a little bit. If you're playing the female character who was initially a lawyer and doesn't really have any military training, it makes a little less sense because you immediately jump into a combat situation pretty quickly. But for the guy, your backstory that they give you is that you were in the military, and so you would probably know a little bit more about that type of thing.
So it makes a little more sense, but I do want to go back to something like you said. It's like a standard AAA kind of game opening where they thrust you into a big action set piece, and I sort of didn't quite like why they did that, their decision there. I get why they did it, but it seems at odds with what we know and love about Fallout generally. But maybe it's just a symptom of the way the games are being made, even for Bethesda. Sure, I understood why it was there, but it was at odds with the initial narrative setup. I agree with that.
Do you mind if I go into the narrative structure a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about that, actually.
All right. So I went into Bethesda games initially in Morrowind, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, and I've always played Bethesda games for their story. not for their gameplay. It's almost like you don't play a Mario game for its graphics. You play it for...
I get it.
Like, there's a certain element, as an old school Bethesda fan, that I expect from their storyline. And I feel they've kind of been going downhill over time.
Well, like I said, it's a symptom of AAA syndrome, essentially.
This feels that they focus more on gameplay, which is phenomenal, but for instance, in Fallout 3, they spend a lot of time developing your character initially in the vault. You see your father, and you spend a lot of time with it, and like, not an over amount, but enough to develop even like a relationship and see that relationship. You develop a relationship with the other characters around you, and these make this influence like later on in the story. Here, I have half a second to get to know my significant other, to get to know my child, before there's an epic nuclear explosion, which is a cool idea, but it just happened so rapidly that I never got to... And since the core of the story follows the relationship with my child, it's almost that they made the most flimsy...
They didn't. Well, it's like you didn't have enough time to get invested as to why you should actually care about the setup. Like, yeah, they tried, but then they want to have an emotional setup, and then boom, action set piece.
I think it's a trope in movies, like, oh, we're going to make you care about this character by giving them a child or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
That's lazy storytelling.
Well, I would say that the character that you're really supposed to care about is your spouse, and then through that, like the whole thing with the child. I mean, the kid is a baby. Like, there's no lines or anything. You're supposed to love your baby, yeah, sure, but like that's kind of a stand-in for your spouse gets murdered right away, and that's like the baby that you're chasing down is kind of a stand-in for like that relationship that they formed a little bit before then. But you're right, they didn't do a lot of forming that relationship. You had a little bit in the beginning, but it wasn't a ton of it.
Yeah, and then, like I said, then you're just thrust into the first quest, which is an action set piece, like fighting quest. Like, here's power armor, which I want to speak about later on in a bit as well. But yeah, I agree with what you said. I played Bethesda game for both. Yes, they have good narrative, but it's the open world exploration, which is excellent in this. Don't get me wrong. The mechanics are, by and large, very well done. It's still as fun as ever, if not more so. But I still do agree that, given the expectations we have for their narrative setups, it was a bit of a letdown.
In a way, I feel like Bethesda's trying to have its cake and eat it too, even though I hate that expression. They are trying for a linear storyline in an open world setting, and it kind of fails then that fails the linear storyline. They give you heavy backstory to who your character is, to the point where, you find if you're the woman, or even if you're the male, you find the woman's law degree. How does that make sense for her if you want to make a stat with her having 1 intelligence and 1 charisma? There's no way like she obtained a law degree unless she went to the University of Phoenix online.
University of Commonwealth, buddy. But...
And then also, like, the husband, gets a little bit more leeway being in the military, but still, these imply certain like organic stats that they should already have. And I don't know, it just...
Kind of, yes. I see what you mean, like, but and you're always sort of, you specifically, you're sort of more hardcore about, like, the RP aspects, and, that's fine, but in this case, I think they're more noticeable. I think you said to me it's sort of like ludonarrative dissonance, and it is. It's quite noticeable, like, when you think about it, upon reflection of what your character is set up to be, and then what you're thrust into, essentially, as the opening introduction to the setting of 4. But I also want to talk about something you just said about the stat thing. That's something I'm not sure I quite like the way they changed it, the way the systems work. Where there's no like medicine, science, etc. anymore. There's no ranking of those. You get a perk chart where essentially you can do anything in the tree, and you can also bump up your special as each level. So like it becomes negligible in the end almost. You're like sort of sweating about how you're going to cut up your special to start out with, because it's very hard to raise those. But in this one, you can raise them every time you level up if you want. So it renders some of it moot, and also the speech checks. I was saying to you guys prior to the cast that because of that, there's no say you have X level of science or even a special stat like endurance or intelligence. None of that matters anymore. It's just a basically charisma check. So you might as well just bump up charisma if you want to do all the speech checks. It sort of detracts away from the nuances that they used to have.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I wasn't a big fan of, specifically what you just mentioned, where especially in Vegas, I think this happened like a few times maybe in Fallout 3, but it happened a lot in Vegas where if your science was high enough, you could
that's what I'm saying.
Like bluff a scientist about something, like about something technical, or like if your medicine was high enough, you could like talk to a doctor about something or do something, right? Like,
and if you were stupid enough, you got special
right,
even
like
exactly.
But to this point, what I really dislike is the fact that they limited it to only 4 choices. And if you have a speech check, that's 3 choices. So in a sense, you have questioning what's going on.
No, it's like more information, essentially.
More information.
Is one of the ones.
Yes, no, or sarcastic.
It's like be an asshole or just go normal. Yes, no. Yeah, like that's true. And I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah.
And bringing in something else you said. Also, because in this one, in 4, your character is now voiced, that also is a sort of double-edged sort of immersion where you're supposed to buy into your character, but you can think to yourself, that's not my voice. You know, it's sort of odd. And also, to that point, to the tree point, it's unclear even what you're going to say sometimes.
Yes.
It's like condensed. It's paraphrased. Yeah. So you're thinking like one line is like sarcastic question mark. Sometimes it doesn't have a question mark. And you're like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, how's it going to change my interaction with whatever quest giver or character I'm talking to?
I would like to say that I'm also... The thing that's probably upset me the most so far is that Ron Perlman is not the one who gives the initial speech in the beginning. It's your character, which is like... A lot of the, like, hearing Ron Perlman's voice say war never changes in the beginning is, like, one of the things I look forward to for, like, every Fallout game that I play.
I'm going to charge Bethesda with a crime.
Video game narrative crime.
They claim they were developing a role-playing game, but eliminated the role-playing. Because in a sense, you can't play this character as a role.
You're playing the role they want you to play, not the one you choose.
Yeah, you're playing a limited set. It's almost as if, in a way, I'm playing Uncharted or something like that. Watching Drake interact.
I thought you were going to say Call of Duty or something, but
no, because
I get it.
It has. It's almost like I'm playing almost a third person. I don't feel I'm this character. I don't feel like in other Fallout. Again, this is particular to me because I really like getting immersed in the game world and like playing the game. I feel like I'm not creating my story, but the character's story.
Sure.
And that's a subtle difference, but it's...
No, I get it. It will certainly change your experience and your reaction to it, and I certainly agree to an extent. One thing I wanted to touch on, just going back to the character, the dialogue choices again, it's like they're ripping it off for like BioWare or something, or like, you know, that's sort of become, it's seemingly like, in the same sense that the action opening is now a standard thing, like no matter what, even though it shouldn't really it doesn't really fit, or shouldn't for this series, but nevertheless, that's where we've come to. Method of displaying your dialogue is now that's the standard, so it's like they felt compelled to have it that way, in a sense.
So I want to break down the standard action set piece that you told me about.
Okay.
I'm a lawyer and a mother who was frozen for 200 years, got out of being frozen with no health repercussions.
And Vault-Tec knew what they were doing, man.
Yeah, except everyone else died. I killed a bunch of roaches, which I exclaimed, "Whoa, those roaches are big!" Went up to the surface. This is the best part, actually, returning to town and meeting your robot. Like, that robot had more personality than any other character I've met so far.
Codsworth?
Codsworth, yes. And then, so I'm looking for my child. I find out that there's other settlers there. I wander into this battle. I'm thrown a gun, have to gun down all these raiders. Then I'm put into power armor, which I don't know how to use. For some reason, this military leader and this other guy who's quite as capable, probably, both tasked me with doing this.
Hey, random woman on the street, come help us kill these scumbag raiders.
We're giving you our biggest weapon in order to kill these people. Like, why me? We're not doing it. Push me onto the roof, and then I'm fighting a Deathclaw. My character would be disoriented. Like, I just watched my husband die, my child get stolen, and I'm thrust 200 years into the future of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And I'm just taking it in stride. Whatever, this stuff happens. Like, I can take my time finding my son, even though, like, I don't know, it just...
Time for this lawyer to learn how to use power armor,
it's an introduction
whatever that is.
It's an introduction to the world, but yeah, like I said, it's a jarring one, and I completely agree. And it's also, I also don't like the way that power armor sort of displays. I don't mind that they sort of made a vehicle, essentially. Mm-hmm. That's fine, and you can upgrade it and all that, and you have the diffusion cores to run it, sure. But the fucking HUD is different. Like that itself is disorienting to me, at least. Maybe just me.
Yeah, but you get used to that pretty quickly. The more you're in it, like it honestly.
Like, it was already frantic enough, and this is a point that I'm going to steal from something else that I saw about having the Deathclaw essentially be the first boss. That sort of negates like the impact of their status as like the ultimate predator of the wasteland. I just took one down as the opening fucking intro.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that encountering that Deathclaw right away, or very beginning, in the early going in the game,
first fucking.
Is kind of I don't know. It kind of, you're right, takes away from how impactful it is the first time you...
Like I said,
like,
that is my...
In like Fallout 3 or Vegas, when you encounter a Deathclaw for the first time, you're definitely not going to live. Like, you just have to go around that fucking thing for a while. Like,
get murdered
until you're like halfway into the game, you know?
But yeah, like I said, that even was my point. Like, I saw that in another article, but it made me think, like, I completely agree with it. It should have been, like, if they're going to do that, it's fine, but don't have it be a Deathclaw. Be a super mutant or something like that.
Or
lead up to it.
Or have it set so that you survive luckily instead of having to, like, actually engage a Deathclaw and beat it as the first thing you do in the game.
And this goes back to the article Scott was talking about. Yeah, it has to be earned. This set piece has to feel like I accomplished something. I felt like I was railroaded into this, and like it was set up for me to win.
Yeah,
it was set up to be exciting
that
without having.
Is the case,
right?
So that's what I'm saying. Like, let me know what you guys think about this. If they're going to do that, but the cutscene or like it should cut to let's call like running towards you and then like swiping you and you waking up later. Like that's a classic thing you've seen forever, and that would make more sense rather than I just blew one away. So,
well, I think, and I mentioned this idea of narrative capital a good amount on these shows, but like kind of what this was doing was writing a check with money it didn't have, you know, like with capital that it didn't have, and like I think I think the game is gonna pay it off in the end and like be able to gain that capital back. But at the time that set piece happened and that time that you fight that Deathclaw, you didn't have the build up to like be prepared for that, narratively.
Agreed. And yes, like I won't say anything specific, but yeah, it pays off later because it it has the classic little side stories here and there and so many interesting characters and all that. It opens up, but what Ian said is correct. 100% agree with. You're railroaded into an odd setup given what they want to believe you how this game is going to go.
It broke my immersion, and I haven't gotten it back yet. I enjoy playing this, but like I still can't. I don't know. I'm not as invested as I was in the Fallout 3, in Skyrim, in Oblivion. I actually think this is more in line with Oblivion too, like
kind of
plot-wise, and how railroaded into things you are.
That's true. Except Patrick Stewart didn't shut up and to tell us we're king of the world, but no, like it's sort of it's sort of a Deus Machina thing, like in that sense. So I 100% agree.
You have Mama Cass, and Mama
Murphy, I think.
Mama Murphy who tells you that you're destined to be this.
I got the sight, child. But sure. So yeah, mechanically and graphically, it looks great. It's as fun as it ever is, perhaps better. The combat is amazing, probably the best. But since we're discussing the narrative, it didn't quite get to where I thought it was going to go, given all the hype around it.
I want to bring up another point about narrative. This is basically the reverse story of of Fallout 3.
Yeah, which is funny, yeah.
When I first saw the trailer with the two people in the mirror together, showing how the character creation worked, I actually thought that you were going to be the child, or like a descendant of those two coming out of the vault, which I thought was going to be very neat. But to have you play, like, I'm cool with that.
Sure, it's still fine.
But instead of hunting for your father, you're hunting for your son across the wasteland. You're wide-eyed innocent in a terrible world.
Strange and scary world.
But in the first one, again, like finding your father was always kind of on the mind, but it allowed, I felt, for more organic exploration, because you really didn't know where he was. If you went and searched for him, people would be like, "Oh, your father's not in the castle."
Right.
In this one, I feel like if you're playing the female, you're Walt or Claire from Lost, and you should be charging like, "My son, my son."
That's what you joked about, but yeah, like that's as Steve said, it's sort of the capital they wanted to invest to begin with, but it just wasn't enough there, given that there's like 20% of a bit of character build up, then boom, action set piece, and then you're supposed to like try to switch back to the 20% that there's nothing beyond that was added to during that initial set piece. So
right, and I think and you're right about how it's kind of the opposite in this and Fallout 3, and like in both games, it seems like you're kind of chasing ghosts, but in this one, so I don't know, 20 hours in or something, and I have not gotten any like really substantial anyone knowing anything about your kid. Like at least in Fallout 3, you kind of got whispers about where your dad was and what he was doing, and like Three Dog talking about. Like in this one, you got, I don't remember. There's a guy that is runs the Diamond City radio, and like he briefly talks about like the dweller from Vault 111 who like showed up out of nowhere.
He hasn't talked about me because I haven't been to Diamond City
whoever
yet.
And did whatever. No, I mean he talks about you anyway.
Oh, really?
Like before that, if you've done like
the
Brotherhood of Steel
Right.
The first Brotherhood of Steel
Sure, but that's
quest,
classic.
then he talks about that. Yeah, and it's similar to Three Dog and like the same exact type of thing.
And Mr. New Vegas.
But it seemed like the search for your dad was at the same time like it wasn't as, I don't want to say important, but it wasn't as pressing as this one should be, and also but also at the same time it seemed more substantial. Like the idea that your dad was just like going from place to place and you had no way to reach him, or like you had just missed him. You don't really get that with your kid in this one.
I just saw something. Yeah, it's sort of like it's a mystery setup, and then you instantly get derailed from that by an action like John Woo piece or something like, or like a Transformers scene or whatever. However you want to call it. Yeah, it's like I said, it's very jarring, very immersive breaking, like you said. So in this case, while it opens up, as I said, after that, building up capital here and there in little spots, but to initially start out with, like I think we've decided and agreed that it's just they mishandled it. I guess I want to say.
Fallout 3 started the game when you left the vault with a ton of narrative capital there. Vegas didn't really, but that wasn't the point of Vegas.
It didn't have to exactly. Yeah,
Vegas was about you can play. You are whoever you want.
Yeah, and that's what I really liked about like that setup. Even though the classic amnesia, whatever, like it allowed for that. While this one, like I agree with you, said they're sort of pigeonholing you into roles that, if you try to break from those roles, it feels unnatural to the setup that they're giving you.
Now, all that being said, I think I'm enjoying playing this game more than I liked playing New Vegas.
Yeah, like I said, the combat and so forth, everything else mechanically, it's a huge upgrade.
The side quests are on point as usual.
Yeah.
And really cool. The idea of kind of I don't know. I'm going back and forth whether I really like the whole adding the whole crafting system as like such a large part of the game.
It doesn't have to be though, and I'll speak about that in a sec. But go on.
But it's a big part of the way that the game is set up. But like, kind of, every once in a while, getting a radio tower set up, and like people just start showing up in your town seems kind of like feels cool. And like crafting weapons and armor is really cool in this. I like the way that they do that.
I would like to talk about crafting. All right, there's a couple of points. One, I agree with you. Like the crafting system is very good. And
it's way better than it was in Vegas, but I still have my issues with it.
I've been a huge one of setting up a house and like storing all the trophies I made over the course of the game. Now, granted, there's a glitch where most of them fall through the furniture I place, but I'm sure that'll be resolved in time. However, and like it's much easier to place things, much easier to actually set up and make it your own. But I think they went overboard with how many locations you can play. Because the thing is, first of all, in one of my initial playthroughs before I was being driven crazy by this, I was actually setting up Sanctuary, repairing all the houses. I built a pool hall in one of the locations.
About the jukebox hangout.
And the thing is, I like this game, but I don't want to play community service the game. All right, townsfolk, we're going to go down to the river and take all the tires out of here. That's a punishment for minor crimes in our society, let alone...
Hey, listen, man, you got to rebuild the Commonwealth. But it's really funny, you said, like, when you came up with that, like, it was hilarious. See, that's the thing, that's perhaps me again. Yeah, it's really nice that they have all that, and the system, it is a smooth system, but also it gets overwhelming. And if I wanted, I would play fucking Minecraft if I wanted to sit around building stuff all day. Like, yeah, it's really cool. Again, it adds to, like, the atmosphere of it, and you can go around setting up various other settlements, and sure, you can RP that a bit, but to me, like, I'm not here to build like a bunch of shit, and to your point, to go around like having to recycle all, like, scrap all the shit. And
if they had left it at Sanctuary and maybe 2 other locations,
I agree with that.
I would have been cool. But the gas station literally down the block from your Sanctuary, which has nothing in between the two places, you can build a town there.
Yeah.
So it just seems that they're everywhere. Like
there's a lot of them to be.
I have like 8 of them so far.
I have more than that, and that's I agree with your point.
I keep waiting for microtransactions to pop up, like, oh, you need more rubber,
steel, or whatever. Yeah, sure.
Well, you can actually, from some stores and things, you can actually buy like, I forget how it's phrased, but it's just like a piece of paper. It's like a shipment of whatever item you need. So like, all right, you need a shipment of like
concrete or whatever.
60 rubber. Like that'll be 400 caps, and like you just get a shipment of a shitload of whatever.
Like, you can spend all day doing that, but that isn't like what I play Fallout for. And like, it's really cool and extensive, and perhaps to a fault, like more so. Like if you guys check out the power options, there's so much shit you can just randomly do. Like.
Yeah.
But it's just fucking around. Like, there's no narrative to that. Again, I appreciate the fact... I don't have anything against it, really. It's just that I'm not personally going to mess around with it all that much.
But I think the nice thing is... And I'm not sure if it's, like, becomes necessary to do later in the game, but you can play without doing that stuff. And, like, so it doesn't have to be part of your game, you know?
The thing is, I feel that if you had one location to focus on, you would care
It would be
a
more
lot
focused.
more about that.
I agree with
location.
that. Yeah. Because it becomes overwhelming when I see all these settlements on my list and they're all missing like 5 resources that I need. I don't feel like going around building all this crap. Like that's my entire play session. I want to go meet characters and do quests and fight things for the most part.
Like,
So anyway.
or like this reminds me of Hearthstone from Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, I get to build a house. Oh, I get to build 3 of them. I mean, like, it takes me so much investment and time to make one of these that 3. I don't know.
Exactly. Like I rather just prefer going around the wasteland and discovering locations. Like that's to me that's old school. Like how I fell in love with the in Fallout 3. We're just like wandering around, like being impressed by the locations and locales and the design of the world that they have. Not staying in 3 little settlements and building shacks and beds for everybody so they can be happy.
But yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, I hope that they made it so that you don't need to actually.
I would imagine they would
get deep into that, and you can. But that's the nice thing about Fallout. Like a lot of times, you can play it however you really want to. Like you can have a companion, or you can hang out by yourself. You can get perks that make you better if you're by yourself and don't have a companion. You know, like that type of thing. So they kind of allow you, and they have always tried to allow you to play the game. As far as gameplay goes, anyway, how you want to. Even
though it makes no narrative sense to the characters they set up for you. But yeah, I agree with that. They give you a lot of freedom, yes.
So I've nitpicked a lot so far, but overall I've enjoyed the gameplay aspect. And here's a couple things I really enjoyed, changes they made. One, feral ghouls are really...
They're intense, man. They're fast as shit.
Yeah.
And they're scary. There's a fog thing. All of a sudden some feral ghouls ran out of the woods. They legitimately made... They reintroduced... zombies are such a abused trope nowadays that they made them frightening again for me in a gameplay. And in a game that's not meant for them to be...
right. They're sort of a side thing of the whole world. Sure.
So I really respect them for that.
They're pretty great. And they up the rads that they give you, too. It's... You have to be concerned that you're not going to get radiation.
I like the rad system.
That's what I was going to say. I like it a lot better. It's so much easier to do.
It's very much streamlined. I agree. It's a good change.
I like you mentioned this earlier, Steve-O, the weapon mod system.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
It's not overwhelming, and it's actually very intuitive on how to do everything. And finally, I'm going to leave off of this, the VAT system. The fact that it doesn't pause. That the characters are
Enemies
still moving
still,
with motion.
It's just slower.
I think that was a very intelligent decision on that.
I like that too.
100% agree with that. I think that might be one of the, if not the best change, top 3 that they made. It's more immersive. It looks cool, and it makes more sense to how VATS is supposed to be, how it's supposed to work in the world.
Yeah, and as always, I completely agree with that about VATS, and it's still really good. Oh, another change that I wanted to mention is not having to pinpoint which limb you want to heal with a stim pack.
Yeah.
Makes it it's just so much easier. It streamlines it so much more.
I want doctor's bags or nothing.
Fair enough. But overall, of course, it's about the setting, and they did an amazing job on that. I can get fully immersed just by wandering around the ruined buildings and discovering things, and seeing ghouls crawl out of the woods. And one time I went into a house and they just dropped down from the ceiling. It was pretty scary.
Yeah. Another thing that I really like that Fallout always does well, but it's pretty exceptional in this one is the soundtrack, both the as you were mentioning, just the kind of ambient sounds that you have when you're exploring, or if you have the radio on. Like I was telling you guys earlier, I kind of got sick of listening to the same songs over and over again. And I was like, what are there, 5 songs? Then I looked at the list. There's 20 something. And it's an hour and 45 minutes worth of music. I just played so much that I've cycled through them a bunch of times at this point.
That'll happen, sure.
But yeah, the radio station is really good, and the sheer ambience is just brings me right back into Fallout, which I always fucking love playing.
Without a doubt, the most beautiful, I think, game that Bethesda has produced so far.
Yeah.
Skyrim was very beautiful as well, but this, they did perfect.
There's something, I agree. The atmosphere, like I said, and it's 100% top notch in this, so we're having a good time with that, even if they stumbled a bit on the actual narrative setup and the freedom you're supposed to have with your character, which you do, but does it make sense? Maybe not, but you probably won't care since you'll be too busy wandering Wasteland anyways. So I think we said our piece on the introduction to Fall, at least our first impressions of it. Anybody else got any final thoughts?
It's been nice being back for Syntax Error.
And although I complain a lot, it's a great game. So
yeah, you're probably all playing it now, so we'll see you in the Wasteland itself, in the Commonwealth. Watch out for the synths.
This has been Syntax Error. Thank you as always for listening, and we will see you next time.
Music by Stephen Armosi. Editing and engineering by Scott Thurlow.
Syntax Error is part of a Lost Signals Productions. All rights reserved.